Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of My Fund Manager series with My Money Panda. So, is large cap good for me, or multi cap fund is good, or multi cap or flexi cap? Which fund is good for me? But before deciding this, we need to know what each category of mutual funds mean. To discuss the same today, we have with us Mr. Manish Kalnawar, who is head of product and communication at ICICI Mutual Fund. Welcome, Manish. Welcome to our episode.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. It's a privilege to come.
Thank you. So, Manish, to start with, can you help us understand what prompted SEBI to make categorization of mutual funds a standard?
Uh, yeah. I think what we have seen from the regulator is always they have taken steps in the mutual fund side to ensure that whatever steps they take, it is beneficial for NS. And in the same process, they were also thinking to rationalize the whole mutual fund space so that uh, based on an investor's risk appetite, if he sees that they have a high risk appetite, then there would be a particular set of funds which can cater to. Or if an investor says that, okay, I am a retired boss and I need a very conservative kind of fund, so there should be a particular set of schemes which would be catering. So the whole idea, what I believe is that regulators was very clear that they want to rationalize the whole process of selecting the right mutual fund schemes based on the investments. So that was something which really
Great, great. So, probably SEBI wanted that there should be standard schemes. So, if I am looking at large cap, it should be large cap, same for ICC, for otherwise every other mutual fund house.
absolutely it should be like what ICS is doing or what Easywise is doing or what SBI is doing or what Kotak is doing. When investors hear that I need a large cap fund, at least the broad on KC should be something in place. That is very important so that investor is not confused that ICC has a very different philosophy. Maybe an SBI has a different philosophy. They don't get entangled in that kind of a situation. They're very clear ki broad, if I clear, the casing is there, then I have to. So tax simplification causes less. That's it.
So, from what I understand, there are the three kinds of fund categories. One is equity, then debt, then hybrid.
Correct.
So, if you can take our audience through major categories of equity, major categories of debt, and major categories of hybrid.
Sure. So so equity debt hybrid is something which is a very broad category when we talk about mutual fund. In fact, when SEBI did the classification, they kind of created 5 broad categories. One was equity, debt, hybrid, and fourth was solution-oriented schemes, and fifth was other schemes. In other schemes, you have the index, ETF, fund of concern, sector packs, etc. Sector thematic comes in your equity basket. Okay, the other schemes is one ski of ETF, LEX, FO schemes. So, so when we talk about the main broad 3 categories which you mentioned correctly is equity, hybrid, debt. So what they did is that on the equity side, they kind of started classifying equity schemes based on their market cap. That was the first classification which they did under equity umbrella. And in that, based on market cap, what they did said is that, okay, every AMC should have a pure large cap scheme. And that's only one allowed. You can't have 2 or 3. So it's just one scheme, right? So large cap scheme. So in that, they further went into the nitty-gritty saying that when we're talking about large cap, the definition should be 80% of the stock should be invested in large cap. These and large cap companies, for the benefit of audience, I'll just put it across. Large cap means the top 100 listed companies on NSE or BSE of Delhi. Top 100 companies are called as such. And from 101 to 250 is called as mid cap companies. 250 and above, rest all the companies comes up to that. So this was one example where I quoted first categorization under equity related to market cap basis. So one is large cap, to give you an example. Then there is something called as flexi caps. As the name suggests, flexibility or flexi cap. The scheme has complete flexibility to move anywhere between large, mid, and small cap. There is no hard and fast rule like large cap you have to be 80%. Here it's complete fixed. Then there is mid cap schemes which were categorized. And mid cap, the definition 65% should be invested in mid cap stocks. What qualifying as a mid cap scheme. Small cap, similarly, there is a qualifying criteria of 65% should be invested in small peak schemes. And just to add one more, which is multi-cap schemes. Multi-cap is the qualifying criteria is 25% should be invested in each market cap. What I mean by 25% by each market cap means 25% in large cap, 25% mid cap, and 25%. So these were some major market cap based classification on the equity side.
So we can say कि first they define what is large, mid and small cap in equity space, which until that point of time was not there.
Yes.
Then they define which category of mutual fund will have how much of each market cap. So like you said, for large cap, 80% large cap, for mid cap, 65% mid cap, for small cap, 65% mid cap. Then other two categories, flexi cap and multi cap. Flexi cap can be 0 to 100 among three categories at any point of time. Complete flexibility apps. Yes. Multi cap, but will have 25% each in large, mid and small cap. And that's 35 is at discretion of the
Discretion of a Fed apps in. So that's how the broad casing, or like you said, contours have been set for these schemes. So you don't have too much of divergence between other users. So that was, so this was first, which was a market cap. Then there was second on strategy. So I will give you some example on strategy based like value as a strategy. So any schemes which take value stocks or stocks which are available at discount. So those kind of scheme which invest in those kind of thing comes under a value strategy. Then contrarian strategy was there. So any stocks which are out of flavor and the fund manager want to take that contra back on certain stocks. So that kind of a portfolio got classified under the strategy of contrarian strategy. Dividend yield is under that one strategy which is there. ELSS, which is a tax saver net of tech, comes under that strategy as a script. So these are few examples that under the strategy what all categorization has been done. So this is based on a certain strategy which the fund managers like value, dividend yield, contra, etc. So that's the second transformation.
And how do they segregate DAC schemes?
Debt schemes, yes. So debt schemes also, again, there are two types of classification which they do under debt schemes. One is based on your maculate duration. And if I have to tell you maculate duration in a very broad senses, it talks about how much uh, the individual bonds which are there, how much duration individual bonds are there, multiplied by their dates, whatever is the modified maculate duration is calculated. So it talks about broadly about what would be the portfolio duration. So based on duration, they have first segregated on the tech side. And it is very important because there are investors who will say that, okay, I want to put my money for, let's say, 3 months. There are people who will say, I want to put money for 6 months, or some will say 1 year, 2 year, 3 year. And even in fact, there are certain corporate investor who will say, I will put it overnight, or let's say 1 day, or 2 day, or over them 3. So that's why SEBI thought that on the debt side, there has to be a very clear categorization based on the duration, which matches to the investor's requirement. So if I have to give you a few examples, like there is as low as overnight, which invest only in those securities which have a overnight kind of nature, one day maturity. Then there are liquid funds. Liquid funds is where you will have bonds, money market bond instruments which have a very, very low maturity. Then you have money market instruments where you are investing in money market instruments which have a maturity of less than money, and that's why they qualify per money market. Or let's say there is ultra short term captive, which invests between 3 to 6 months. Then comes your low duration category, which invests in 6 to 12 months. Then you have short term funds, which have 1 to 3 years kind of a. Then you have medium term funds, which have 3 to 4 kind of a duration. And like so on so forth. It just moves across it.
So I guess if I have to park my money for let's say 1 month, I should not end up, investing it in a long duration tab. Correct?
That's the whole.
And how does that affect my returns? The duration part. What is the risk associated with the duration part of the debt parts?
So actually what happens is if you are going slightly higher on duration, what happens is your sensitivity to interest rates becomes higher. So I give you an example. Let's say if you have invested in a very, very long duration fund, like let's say a gilt, just to give an example. Gilt fund is normally it invests in government securities which are of very long duration. So let's say if you are invested in a gilt government securities which has a modified duration, let's say in the range of 7 years or 8 years or 9 days. So what happens is if there is a small interest rate change, let's say RBI comes out and in the next policy meet, it decides that let's cut the interest rates by 25 basis points. So what happens when the interest rates movement happens? The high duration fund has a higher sensitivity to upside, and it can work in the reverse also. I gave an example of rate cut, which is actually positive for gilt fund. Imagine if there is a scenario when actually interest rates move higher. So there is a possibility that the duration funds can give you a negative returns also for that point of time, because it is your interest movement and your portfolio is kind of inversely related. So if interest rates goes up, your portfolio value kind of come down. So imagine if RBI increases the rate and you have invested in a duration fund, then you may see that negativity for a year. So if investor is not very sure that he says that "Okay, I want to invest for only 1 month," and he goes for a gilt fund. And unfortunately, if there is some interest rates movement happens which is adverse, then he will have that mark to mark trades. So that's why it's very important that when you are looking for your indicative investment horizon, when the investor is coming for a indicative investment horizon, that okay, I'm sure that I want this money after 1 month. Let's say after 1 month he's going for a Europe, but he says, "Mipu, 1 month is what I'm looking at." So for that 1 month, you park it in liquid fund or you park it max to max maybe in a money market fund. Don't go to innovations. That is not a same recipe for birds. So that's the whole idea of it.
So practically speaking, if interest rate goes up during that point of 1 month, then I will have losses in my fund if it's a long duration.
Yes, it's a higher duration.
So ideally, it should be matching with my required horizon.
Correct. Because what happens is that if you are, let's say, if your investment horizon is 1 month and you're investing in a liquid fund kind of a thing, because the maturity or the duration of liquid funds is much on the lower side, that's why the impact of interest rate movement would be very, very less. It will hardly impact it. So that's why for 1 month, you be clear that you're not in the race of making big money. You are just what stable return you can make in that fund should be the make that.
Right? And the criteria to be classified as an equity fund is minimum 65% should be in equity. And for debt fund, similarly 65% is debt. Now, let's move from equity and debt to third category, which is hybrid cap. So can you take us through what hybrid category means, what are the subcategories and the rates?
Absolutely. I think hybrid category is very close to us also because as ICC Prudential Mutual Fund, we have worked a lot on the hybrid space. We're very, very positive on the hybrid space. So we were very happy post the SEBI categorization that how the hybrid got so beautifully designed for us. In fact, one of our fund basis that the nomenclature for that also is being given like dynamic asset and actually parity. But yeah, we were very happy with how the hybrid structure was created. So if I could give you a hybrid, it's very beautifully constructed if I pay. So let's imagine if an investor says that, okay, I am very cautious on equity market. I want to take a very small baby steps into equity markets. So think of an investor like he's 100% data, maybe a aged person or a retired person. And he says that, okay, I wanted to inch a small steps in it. So hybrid is a great stepping stone for him to slowly enter into that space rather than directly going into a thing which is maybe 100 or smaller 90s. So the hybrid is also created like step-like function where you have the most conservative of the hybrid schemes called as arbitrage, which will take complete exposure to equity and complete derivatives matching to that. So your net exposure to equity markets would be zero. Most of the AMCs run that way. That's why it's called up. So it's equity, but with a flavor of
And it will always replicate risk-free returns of the market.
yes, yes. It is kind of I can say for many people it is kind of a alternative option for your liquid funds or money market fund. That's how people look at because it is 0% exposure to open equity exposure, and that's a 0% exposure to the So it's pretty conservative.
And for those who have got higher tax bracket, it becomes more tax efficient also.
Because it qualifies under the equity taxation. So that is also a big game changer for SASB.
So the benefit of an arbitrage fund as compared to a liquid fund or FP will be one, tax part, and second, because it's net zero on equity, that is long short means zero, so it's completely fixed. Comparatively says safer also. Absolutely good to know. Uh, Now under hybrid, what are the different categories on equity plus debt side? So I understand there is aggressive equity, there is conservative equity, then there is dynamic asset allocation. How does these categories differ from each other?
Right. So I'll just give you a few examples. Like when we talk about aggressive hybrid schemes, and as the name very clearly suggests, here the equity exposure is much on the higher side. The equity exposure normally ranges between 65 to 80. That's why it's called as aggressive hybrid schemes. But let's say investors say that "Okay, I don't want to take that kind of exposure. Can I come a step lower for equity exposure?" The answer is yes. There is a category or schemes which are called as, let's say, a dynamic asset rotation or balance advantage fund category. There, the equity exposure moves very flexibly, let's say between a range of 30 to 80%. It can shift between there. So investor who's slightly lower on risk compared to aggressive equity hybrid can't do the dynamic setter sheets or a balance. But let's say if the investor says that, no, I am, this scheme also looks aggressive for me, my risk appetite is further lower. So imagine a investor like that. Then you can further take a step down. So there is a conservative hybrid schemes also, which takes only 10 to 25% in it. So the equity exposure is on a very what happens since conservative hybrid scheme is the only one where the equity exposure remains between 10 to 25%. That's the one which would be going for a debt taxation. Otherwise, normally the aggressive hybrid or dynamically managed asset allocation scheme or balance advantage fund majorly gets qualified for equity price.
So basis 65% criteria, scheme will be classified as equity or debt. So 65% is in equity, its taxation will be equity. If 65% at least is in debt, then taxation will be debt taxation. So, Manish, a lot of people use dynamic asset allocation, balance advantage fund to surmount market volatility because the underlying mandate is कि you have to do equity allocation as per market valuation. That is, when market valuations are high, then equity allocation will be low, and vice versa. So if you can dwell upon on some anecdotes, on some historical case studies, how these kind of food categories helping surmounting the market volatility.
So, I give you an example of our ICICI Furniture Balance of Practice Fund because I work in ICICI, so I know that that's why I'm using an example. So ICICI Prudential Balance Advantage Fund, its equity level can move between 30 to 8x. That's the range. And very simple strategy that when the market is very expensive, you can come down to 30%. And when the market is very cheap, you can do as high as 8x. And what happens, it does this dynamic movement very fast. Normally, what happens with investors is that because of the breeded fear kind of psychological barrier, what happens is that we have done this study for a very long period of time. In fact, our ICICI Collection Balance of Active Fund, we launched it in March 2010, way before the categorization and on came in. But that time we studied it very closely because when we saw the 2008 global financial crisis, we saw that it's very difficult for controlling. Sometimes the investors breed. They say that okay, the return is getting created, I should further pump in money. But maybe asset allocation wise, that's the time when you should reduce the exposure. Or we have seen fear like situation where we think that the investors should be prompted for putting big money. They don't come to the table. They say that we have not made historical yield returns. We are not coming. We are not opening those. So that kind of a challenge is this was a perfect fund. The dynamic asset allocation fund, or I'll say ICICI Prudential Manager, we launched it we created in a manner that it covers that credence. Yes. Well, so 30 to 80% was equity level. And if I have to give an example, like, for example, when COVID happened, March 2020, if you remember, when market kind of tanked, everybody was worried, etc. See, if you were a normal investor, you would have said that, oh, it's life threatening things happening, nothing is open, nobody's in the market, nobody's on the boards. Why am I investing in it? That's the fear sector, right? You would hardly invest. But fortunately, this is a ICC Prudential Balance Advantage Fund. It is a pure model based driven fund. And that time when market corrects, it become very, very cheap. It was very attractive. And this fund, 2, 3 months back, was sitting roughly around 40-45% in equity, moved it to all the level high to 70 to 74, which was almost closer to the higher area. And that's where it captured the upside beautifully. And today, when I'm talking to you, it would be somewhere around that 37-38% mark because market is at all-time high. So it has beautifully reduced that. So without that psychological barrier of greed and fear, these are the categories of skis which would help you to dynamically manage that as a pressure barrier.
So Manish, at Wealthy what we do when we feel that market valuations are very high, we deploy two tactical calls. One is STP, VT STP over a period of say 3 months or 6 months. And second is Balanced Advantage Fund. And I'll cite you two anecdotes. One is when we started in November 22. So from December 22 up till April 23, markets went down by 10%. But our portfolios were up by 5%. Similarly, recently in September, when markets were down by 12%, our portfolios were down by only 3%. I mean, those money which you started deploying at that point of time. And that was possible only because we made a very judicious mix of these two asset categories. Now, coming to, let's say first time investor, and he wants to, and I'm taking a scenario where he is very, very conservative. He's moving from fixed deposits only. How would you advise such an investor to start his journey in mutual funds?
Uh, See, if a person is coming from a FD kind of a background, I think I won't give him a very big shocks at the starting. I won't recommend him a small cap or a mid cap and everything. I would try to give him baby steps. Baby steps means giving very small experience through, let's say, some allocation which can be invested in debt schemes. I would recommend like a all season bond fund kind of thing, which is a dynamic duration fund, which can move its duration between 1 to 10 years. So you don't have to worry about timing the duration, when to increase the duration, when to reduce the duration based on the interest rate. So that's one strategy on debt, some allocation cap given. Then I think I will venture more into the hybrid space for that investors, like balance advantage and is a good category for that investor to get a flavor of how equity can be managed very dynamically without too much of risk added into. See, so balance advantage fund category would surely be recommended for that. I would recommend one more category which we haven't discussed in the hybrid space and which we personally as a house like a lot is multi-asset fund. That's a very good category of schemes to be looked at for such investors because what happens in multi-asset fund as a SEBI categorization definition is that you have to invest minimum 10% in three assets, at least three asset classes. So what happens normally, you get a very good flavor of equity, you get a good flavor of debt, you get a good flavor of gold or silver. And REITs, etc. REITs in which is also there. Or if you want to take some foreign equities, that's also possible. So you can get such a beautiful mix of such varied asset classes with equity taxation. Most of the AMCs have multi-asset taxation. So I think that's also one strategy which we would recommend for such investors who are first time coming to the mutual funds. 60. Maybe later you can allocate him to the equity side, maybe a large cap, but start I think this.
So instead of you doing asset allocation at portfolio level, Fund manager will be doing the asset allocation under multi-asset cap. Basis his understanding of various asset classes. And he has got that flexibility also.
Absolutely. Like if I have to give you an example, like at ICC Prudential Multi-Asset Fund, we have how many of fund managers who are working in multi-asset? Like there are fund managers who are dedicated for equity. There are fund managers who are dedicated for debt. There are fund managers who are looking only at the gold, silver kind of a thing. There are fund managers who are only looking at derivatives. So I'm saying in multi-asset also, where you get a very good mixture of professional expertise for investors. So that's also a great way for investors to get all asset class into one package with equity in access.
Great, great. And moving from mutual funds to markets, what is your understanding of current market sentiment? More so from the valuation point of view. And I love if you would take us through large cap, mid cap, small cap valuations as compared to the historical benchmarks.
Uh, and then we look at equity view, if I had to make that picture, every one thing which we are very clear about at this point of time, and that is what we are advertising in that. See, India's HR story looks very, very solid. There is absolutely no challenge. Macros are very solid. So that's the first thing which we need to look at is that, and I use an analogy that India has got the cleanest, whitest, brightest white shirt. And because it has the cleanest, brightest white shirt, that price of that shirt is slightly higher. And that's why, like you said, valuation is so nice. But just to focus on this fine point that India's structural story is intact, because if you look at certain things, and you normally look at these parameters very closely, but if you look at four balance sheets very closely, one is government balance sheet, second is corporate balance sheet, third is unbalance sheet, and fourth is household balance sheet. So government balance sheet is important because they are the major public's expenditure or capex spenders in the economy. They create roads, railways, dams, etc. They prop up the economy. Private companies are also important because they are the ones who create new factories, expands this employment to people, and when they get employed, they go and consume. So they are also important. Banks are the major lenders to the. So if somebody has to buy a house, they go to bank. If a company has to set up a factory, they have to go to bank. So we are the lenders. And finally, households. Their balance sheet should also be healthy because they are the ones who are consuming. India, what we have observed is that all food balance sheet looks very so. Whether we are talking about government, corporate, and I can give numbers, fiscal deficit, we have already seen how it is coming on the government side. Their revenues has been very phenomenal. Whether we have inflation is under control, inflation is under control, growth is good. Revenue side, direct taxes, indirect taxes, GST connections, if you look at, is much better. Corporate side, if you look at, they have deleveraged so much, like almost close to 2018-17. The corporate debt to GDP was roughly around 60-62%. That has come down to almost a level of 48 rupees. So that's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. I'm saying there is too much of deleveraging, which is the balance sheet is much healthy. Bank's balance sheet, if you look at for the last decade, if you look at this point of time, bank's balance sheet is in a best. Their non-performing assets is at all-time low. That there is to SCLT, NCLT plus or after 2018 crisis which has happened, lot of cleaning has happened, lot of IBC kind of a code which has happened. All that has hit. So bank's balance sheet is looking very. Household balance sheet again is much better in shape. Rural side is now starting to pick up. Urban side was always weak. So that's why we are saying when you look at India, the structural story is weak. Somebody is a long term and we say there's no problem. The only problem which we give as a view, the challenge which is there is valuation. The starting bond is not cheap. So cross spectrum, if you look at, there is nothing cheap what we have seen in like March 2020. So valuations is not cheap this quarter of Paris. Now, if you're an investor, if you face this kind of a situation where the fundamentals is very good, but valuations is not cheap, how do you go about it? What we say in this kind of situation is you can't take a very table thumping call on equity because valuations are nice. Neither you can be very negative on equity because the long-term structure story is put. So you have to take a middle of the road approach. And that's why we've been very vocal, very positive in the last 1 year on hybrid as a space, which gives you a middle of the road kind of approach. So your equity, your aggressive hybrid funds or your multi-asset funds or balance advantage kind of a schemes are something which we are recommending in this particular. Even if you are looking at, let's say somebody says that, okay, we want to have equity schemes now. What we will recommend is even if you're looking at these schemes, have to select those schemes where there is flexibility. What I mean by flexibility is the flexibility to move between large, mid, and small cap. Flexibility to move between sectors or themes. For example, flexi cap as a category. Complete flexibility to move between large, mid, and small. There is no restriction. Value as a strategy. Complete flexibility to move it there. special situation, complete flexibility to move between large mid and small cap pass. So think of the comfort which fund manager has, that if he believes that the equity market is going to correct, if there is volatility, then he can shift his portfolio completely towards large cap. And let's say one fine day he says that the market is going to do very well, things are looking very positive, he can shift his portfolio towards that. So that's why if you're looking for equity sleeves, what our recommendation is, put for flexibility on that. S- That's how we are looking. Last time which you have asked on large, mid and small cap the valuations is, see, honestly, we're more comfortable on match cap as a market cap price, because large cap valuations is still much reasonable compared to mid and small cap. And I can give you a number, like if you look at Nifty 50p would be roughly around 22 to 83. Nifty Midcap 150p, if you look at that, would be close to 37.38p. Small cap P, if you look at that, would be as high as 45, 46 in that range.
And how would be the historical values?
Historically, if you look at Nifty 50, if you look at last 10, 12 years average, Nifty 50p would be somewhere
2120.
in the range of 1920 in that range. And so we are almost
Then curve.
mid and small cap. Actually the mid and small cap data is slightly distorted because of their earnings not being there, so we don't look at very closely. But what we look at, if I have to elaborate very closely, is that, and this is a very important data which we publish in our monthly market output, is how much of the percentage of total listed companies which are there in NSE BSE, how much of that percentage is contributed by large cap, mid cap, small cap. Today, if you look at mid and small cap, almost contribute close to 38-39% of the total listed market cap companies. Total market cap which is there in India. Out of that, almost 37% is contributed by Matetsu. Somewhere in, let's say, 2017, 18 or few years back, it was as low as close to, let's say, a 25-26%. That has gone up to 38% because the valuations has gone up in Indonesia. So that's kind of a red flag which you feel. But in the same time, if you look at the large caps are very attractive. Especially if you look at the top 50 and all, their contribution would be only hardly 47% at this point. So that's why we believe large caps are very attractively valued as per square, right? Compared to mid and small cap, reasonably valued areas. That's why they are more comfortable on large cap as well.
So if I have to go for small and mid cap allocation, I should go through staggered manner. London is not something which should be recommended at this point.
Staggered, and you should be very clear that you are coming with a very long term plus. There would be a possibility that in the next 1-2 years you will see some OD, but that should not bitter your long term book. So you should have that long term. That's also very good.
Thank you, Manish. Thank you for joining us and sharing so much knowledge with us. Thanks, sir.
I enjoyed. Thanks. Thanks, doctor.